It's a convention, almost a cliche for a host to introduce his guest as one who needs no introduction. In your case, this is something that's quite literally true. Have you felt that a liability, to need no introduction?
No, I'm very happy. Please don't introduce people. I don't think there's any need for this conversation at all. But anyway, I've agreed to, and I'm doing it, and because I've admired or I've appreciated the two conversations I've seen. I thought at least this fellow is fairly kind to his victims and makes things easy. So,
have you felt inhibited about the fact that you're easily recognized, that you're a well-known personality? Does that intrude upon your life?
Yes, but only in Bombay. I'm not known anywhere else really, at least not visibly, or not by being seen. In Bombay, yes, but you get used to it, and what can one do? The main thing, most of the people who recognize you and come to you or address you without knowing you mean well, are friends, they mean to be friendly. Sometimes it goes to rather ridiculous extent. It's quite often for me in Bombay, in the car, another car is by the side and suddenly a hand comes out and says, Mr. Tata, may I shake hand with you? And I said, of course, and then I talk to them, whomever I can. No, so it doesn't intrude in an objectionable way. If people think more of me than they should, or any justification for, then it's their fault, and they're wasting their time.
What do you think of yourself? How do you evaluate yourself?
I certainly estimate myself on a much lower level than seems to be extended to me. I don't think that I quite deserve the friendship, not the friendship is the wrong word, the admiration, the regard that I get, because after all that I've done in my life, except perhaps in creating Air India from scratch, from a little mail airline, I haven't done personally anything of I've never created anything entirely new. It happens that I inherited the situation. I got into Tata's in 1926, and on the death of my father. And thereafter, from then on to now, there was always a good team. Tatas, and went at a rather young age for being the head of a group, namely in
1938, and you were what, 34 years old?
Where
and you were appointed by people who were your seniors.
I was a senior. Well, because yes, I was made a director by Sir Dorab, the chairman, when the man who succeeded Sir Dorab, namely Sir Nauroji Sakladwala, died, the director had to appoint a chairman. And so they appointed me, I thought somewhat prematurely, and I described it as a piece of mental aberration, but it seems to have lasted. So I use that only to explain, in answer to your question, that starting with something that existed, led by a good team of people, experienced and capable, a team to which I only added in the course of years, choosing the best people I could find to join us, those that didn't grow from within. So therefore it was a question of keeping things going and growing. Only a few things were added. Well, one of course was Air India. That was the one thing I may feel that I was wholly responsible for.
Was it a wrenching, anguishing experience for you to relinquish control of Air India?
Yes, of course. But at the same time, you mean much later? No, you're
Yes,
talking
yes.
We are going from that
That's right,
that event,
that's right, that's right.
to February 1978, when Mr. Morarji Desai fired me. He didn't inform me for about 10 or 12 days later, when I got a letter thanking me for my services to aviation. But I learned it from the man whom he appointed as my successor.
How does it feel to be fired?
Well, look, maybe I can't say how. I think the answer cannot be a sensible one, because I had never been fired before. So if you mean, how does it feel to be fired for the first time or never having an experience? Well, it was not unexpected. Mr. Morarji Desai was the Prime Minister of India. He's a man with whom I'd had a whole life almost of love-hate. We were friends, and at the same time the man was quite impossible to deal with. I think everybody who knew him. So it didn't surprise me, and I thought that all things must end sooner or later. The way it was done was not very pleasant to me.
Have you done a lot of firing in your term as chairman of Tata Sons?
I think my leadership, if you can call it that, in Tatas or in business, therefore, has been one of always thinking of colleagues as a team. If one didn't agree, there are ways. I took part in firings, but not in any way that involved me very deeply. It must be deeply because I had to approve. But generally I avoided that. There are other ways of dealing with situations than firing the man. So I can say, on the whole, rarely. It's not a very pleasant thing to do if you have to.
The Tata Sons and the Tata Group of companies have evolved a reputation for excellence, and you've mentioned that how you have been the leader of a team. What are the qualities of a good leader?
Well, one of the things he must be, I would imagine, his leadership must be respected by the team. As I've lasted so long, I must assume that my leadership has been respected and generally approved. Second point I want to make is that I believe, where there are teams, I believe in working on the basis of a consensus. Obviously, when an intelligent human being, and who are themselves in their own field leaders in those fields, and of the companies that are part of the group but are separately and independently managed, we do have differences of opinion with the chairman of the group. There could be and there should be. But generally, unless it's something that is a matter of principle, I always found that one can work on a consensus, either convince them, and if it's not something very serious and I can't convince them and they are very, very sure of themselves, I accept their view. It's never done like, say, in a battle, in a war. I find that working on a consensus is a good way of leading a team, and it makes things easier. There are always problems. We are full of problems in business, somewhat less now than we have been for many years when under the pressures of alleged socialism. But there are always problems and difficulties, and sometimes also losses also of not only financial loss, but the loss of a purpose. But if one is prepared to look look at things in a, I don't know how to say it, in a human way, understanding that most of the decisions of others, even if they are adverse decisions, they are done in their belief that it's the right thing to do. Now, whether Mr. Morarji Desai thought it was the right, must have thought that it was the right thing to do to fire me, that is maybe an exception.
Do you in some senses feel vindicated that globally it's almost as if socialism is on the retreat and capitalist free enterprise, the system of incentive is triumphing in a sense?
I think one can, I believe that Tatas in most of their companies are following socialistic principles. Anybody who visits Jamshedpur, for instance, Tata Steel, sees how the thing is run, for whose benefit. Right from the Mr. Jamshedji Tata was a socialist. He must have been, because otherwise he wouldn't at that time think in terms of what was far, far from what was thought of in other countries in regard to labor relations, human relations. A man who created, he and his successors, and we created, made decisions between management and labor that were not adopted even in the advanced countries of the world for years. It was Tatas who introduced the first 8-hour day, the first leave with pay, a number of firsts. Now this could only be conceived and accepted if, starting with Jamshedji Tata, there was, to me that was socialism. In some ways it has turned out, it may turn out to paternalism, as people think it's paternalism. But anybody who goes to Jamshedpur and studies the situation, who thinks it's paternalism, ought to have his head examined.
But that may well be sort of the exception to capitalism, because capitalism has seen its aberrations too.
But they were aberrations. They were the wrong kind of capitalism. It was a way of life totally free of any social feeling of social responsibilities. In some cases they were.
You started your career when India lacked those very freedoms. Did you feel the impulse to participate actively in India's freedom struggle?
But I even was stupid enough at one stage to think that maybe I should give up the idea of becoming a businessman or an industrial leader and join the Congress party. I was immensely impressed by Jawaharlal. There was a great love and admiration for the man. But I soon realized I didn't go too far in that thought, because having attended one or two meetings and having seen people in action, I realized that all that would mean is to get myself arrested, go to jail, where I didn't think I could do very much for the country or for the party. But the main reason I didn't, apart from that, was to feel, it was the fact that I'm almost an apolitical or apolitical, I never know how to pronounce the word, animal. I don't understand, I dislike, and I don't react except adversely to almost all politics, pure politics. And there's been so much of it that I've blessed the fact that I never decided to be both a businessman, and I knew also that if I was, I'd have to leave industry and develop and devote myself to the other, to the political side.
What excited you about being a business person or an industrialist and a leader of industry?
Didn't excite me, but the only thing that excited me is the opportunities to create. That's something new. See a new factory created, a new plant being built, seeing employees, seeing new work being done. And of course, because I believe thoroughly that India must industrialize if it's got to find employment, apart from the agricultural opportunities, which I knew were there. So therefore the excitement was in seeing things done.
Were you ever excited by the creation of wealth?
No, and that is something I've never quite understood. I haven't acquired wealth myself. My father died fairly heavily in debt, because he had a large family and his habits of traveling between India and Europe were rather expensive. And so I didn't start with any wealth, except the right of having some shares in Tata Sons. But I miss wealth in the sense that I think that if I had a real wealth, not the few lakhs of rupees that I'd be able to do more.